Hey, what's up? Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Roll Pod, an Alabama sports podcast from Bama 247. I am staff writer Cody Goodwin, and I am glad you are here recording this on a Thursday morning, one day after a busy National Signing Day. Alabama wrapped up with 23 total signees as part of its 2024 recruiting class. The Crimson Tide locked in the number 2 ranked recruiting class nationally. Nick Saban and his staff, pretty good final sprint here with a couple of commitments, a couple of flips, nearly everybody early enrolling too. We're going to discuss all of that. Once again, we've got Brett Greenberg, our very own recruiting expert at Bama 247, back on the show with us. Brett, you've had about 12 hours or so to relax since yesterday. How are you holding up, man?
All good, man. Hey, it was, I was talking with some people on the board. It was, year one for me, ready to do 20 more of them. It was an exciting day. Everybody did a great job, and I was proud of our coverage, but it was a fun time. Like doing a little bit of research, like, hey, is it typically this many flips type thing? It was looking at like tweets and thoughts from other national analysts, and like, this is the wild, craziest signing day we've had. So felt a little bit better about myself, just how stressful I was, but yeah, it ended up being a great day. Alabama, started with the number 3 class. I'm sure you'll hit on a little bit, but jumped up to the number 2 class. And overall, I think it was an impressive afternoon, as a whole for Alabama.
Yeah, no, they jumped from 3 to very comfortably second. And this is something that we'll get into too, but maybe a couple of commitments away from perhaps being the number 1 ranked recruiting class. We'll touch on that. But again, 23 of the 25 known commitments have signed. We know that Ryan Williams, who reclassified 5-star receiver from Sarah Landy, plans to sign in February. 3-star linebacker Quentin Reese from Birmingham. Not sure if we've seen him sign yet. Could be a potential gray shirt option, since I know Alabama is trending toward being above the 85 scholarship limit by the time, the second semester rolls around. So we'll keep tabs on that. But of the 23 signees, we got 2 5-stars, quarterback Julian Sayin, defensive back. I think he's listed as an athlete, but I think we all know that he's going to play in the defensive backfield. Jalen Mbakwe. 5 were in the top 100, 8 were in the top 150, and 11 were in the top 247. If stars matter to you, Alabama picked up 2 5-stars, 17 4-stars, 4 3-stars. Those are the guys that officially signed again, because Williams is, again, another 5-star athlete who will sign in February. And like I mentioned before, pretty comfortably the number 2 ranked recruiting class, only behind Georgia. And then behind those two, you had Miami, the U. Are they back? Maybe. We'll see. Miami, Ohio State, and Texas go 3, 4, 5. We'll get into the details of the day. We touched a lot on this, I feel like, in the pod earlier this week. So maybe not so much on the guys that we knew were going to sign, but we'll touch on some of the new guys and maybe some of the guys that Alabama ran the entire sprint with and didn't end up getting. But Brett, I wanted to start here. You wrote a recap column yesterday, and you just alluded to it right here. You called Alabama signing day very impressive. What maybe impressed you the most about what Alabama accomplished on Wednesday?
Yeah, I think, before I kind of dive into it, I think noting that Alabama signed the number 1 class last year. I think when you take that into account and this class this year, I think that makes it even more impressive. I know we've had, many questions on the board and fans, and, why are there that many 3-stars? How are there not that many 5-stars? Overall, I've talked about it on this pod too, talking with people, like overall the talent this year, I think, is down. Like as a complete whole, every position, that's kind of been the consensus, and certainly at the offensive line position. But what Alabama was able to do and address positions that I think are going to be a need. You can never have too many wide receivers, and between Rico Scott, Amari Jefferson, Ryan Williams, should he end up, signing and going with Alabama in February. And then you add Arian Hampton, who I think there's still kind of question marks with what position he's going to play. Number 11 athlete in the country. That's one of the guys Cody alluded to, flipping from Texas to Alabama, just another Texas to Alabama flip on signing day. Saban seems to get one of those every couple years, if not more frequently. But I just like what they did. There was no really true surprises. Exactly who we thought was going to sign, commits wise. Everybody was locked in pretty early. And Jason Ross came in a little bit later, but that wasn't really too much of a worry. But yeah, it's kind of started off in the afternoon with the kind of where I allude to the impressiveness is, where Alabama was able to jump. They kickstarted it. This has all happened within kind of a 45-minute, 45-minute span. Steve Muabum, Mibuama out of Canada. Excuse me. I swear I'll get it. I'll get it right eventually. I will get it right eventually.
We're just going to call him Steve from Canada until we learn how to officially pronounce it. It looks like Mubamoa. We're really sorry, Steve, if you're listening. We know you're probably listening all the way from Canada, but like we will figure out how to say your name correctly.
And Steve's such a good kid too. He would love Steve from Canada. So, but yeah, that kind of kick-started the impressive afternoon. Alabama was kind of the leader. I talked about it on, the sites and the boards for really since July when he got his offer. Alabama, continued to show true love that he continued to say and his coach continued to say. He, came back a couple more times. Took his official visit 2 weeks before the sign or before yesterday. Took an official visit to Mississippi State. Kind of seemed like a formality at that point. We told him we're going to come. Let's go check out new head coach Jeff Lebby. But Alabama, I think, just put from the very jump, more effort in recruiting and wanted him more than any other team, and that was very clear to him. It was very clear that of course, everybody's lifelong dream in this class and beyond is to go to Alabama. But for a kid, I was talking with this coach how big of a deal it is to a kid from Canada to come to University of Alabama. There was, a couple hundred people at his signing day ceremony yesterday. It just seemed
That's
like
awesome.
such a cool moment. And, I posted something on the boards and on Twitter. He used I believe his little brother to kind of put on the fake Florida hat, put on the fake Mississippi State hat, and kind of toss it out, then put the Alabama hat on his head. So that was really cool. And, I was talking with Andrew Ivins, national, director of scouting. He was talking about how, in this day and age with NIL and things like that, Steve from Canada, excuse me, is kind of like a guy you want to take and you kind of have to take, and if not, maybe two of them in every class. Maybe a little bit of a wild card just because didn't play, played in Canada. Maybe it's not the greatest competition, but he's 6'4", 260. He puts it together. He looks like he can go rush the passer right now in the SEC. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit to read defenses, keying on defenses and things like that. But once he gets into that program, I think it's going to be, maybe 2-3 years down the road. It's like, Alabama fans go, oh, I remember Steve from Canada. He's still on the team. Let's get him in, type thing. Again, you could never have too many defensive linemen, and maybe he'll, become an edge rusher too. You never know what they want to do there. But yeah, the relationship with Coach Freddie Roach and his trainer and himself was just too strong. Nick Saban, always contacting with him, was just too much for any other teams to overcome. And, he ended up signing, and he'll be, I believe, joining on December 26th. So, kid's going to be packing up his things and moving down to Tuscaloosa. Just an exciting time for him for sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I what I love about Steve from Canada is that he's one of two international players that Alabama signed this cycle. The other one we've talked about before, Justin Okoronkwo, 3-star linebacker from Germany. I think that's pretty cool, right? You combine that with obviously every punter around the country now comes from Australia, but then Alabama's got Olas Alinian, who's offensive lineman from Finland, if I remember correctly. So a lot of international flavor. That's kind of cool to experience that, right? I know you've talked with Okoronkwo pretty extensively just about, the Roll Tide brand and how people even over in Germany are like, oh, wow, you're going to go play at the Alabama. And he's, like, yeah, absolutely. Right. And so, exciting that, another kid that, it's funny. Like this was my first, like, SEC focused national signing day. Like I've experienced national signing day. I've experienced recruiting, all that other stuff. But to see the intensity of it down here in the SEC, like it just means more. Like that is not a joke, right? Like that's so then like to hear that, Steve from Canada, hundreds of people at his signing ceremony, like almost exclusively for him too, right? Like that's really cool, right? Like that's kid probably comes from a really good community. There's a really good village there that's supporting him. And he's probably super amped to get down there and go play, at one of the meccas of college football. Like that is just that's one of the really cool signing day stories. Like to me, like I was getting kind of annoyed yesterday, like sitting on various Instagram lives and driving and listening and trying to, make sure we're keeping tabs on everything. And, just as a team, but then you hear a story like that and it's just like, that's what this day is about. Like just really cool moments like that for kids who get to, realize the next step in some of their ultimate athletic dreams. And so that'll be cool, when he finally gets down here. And, we probably won't hear from him for another year or so because Nick Saban has his true freshman rule. But that is the cool part of National Signing Day is, kids like that getting to live out their dream with all the people that kind of helped them get there. Right.
Yeah. And, this is, I guess, a little bit off topic, but quick shout out to the Alabama media department. The route they took on Instagram and Twitter this year, just kind of the Bamaverse, kind of like comic book Spider-Man type. I don't know how much you like that, Cody.
I thought that was pretty cool.
I thought it was very cool. And the way, you scroll down Instagram, it looked like a comic book. And what they did was they kind of had, a commitment video, highlights. And then what I thought was really, really cool was had each commits or signees parents talk about why they're comfortable with sending their son to the University of Alabama. And I think, I've had a lot of conversations with parents and things like that, and they all kind of echo the same thing. But to listen to those parents talk about how comfortable they are sending their kid, if whether it's from Birmingham or from Canada or from Germany, it's just very interesting to hear. And, you talk about, Steve, we talk about Steve and we talk about Justin Okoronkwo, that those two sets of parents that they were talking about, they're like, we didn't know anything before coming down here. Justin Okoronkwo took his parents to the Tennessee game, which was the first time in the United States, which was, that kind of sets the bar high. If you're a college football fan, I know there's more things.
Welcome to college football in America.
Yeah, I know there's more things to do in America other than, go watch Alabama, Tennessee, and Bryant Denny. But but that,
well, I don't know, man. On the third Saturday in October, I don't know that there's anything else that people need to be doing.
There better not be a wedding or anything. But no, I don't know. I'm sorry. I just had to shout that. It was just very cool to me, and I thought the parents thing was a very nice touch, and to kind of see a couple of the parents that I've talked to before, just share their excitement with me personally, and then kind of share it to the world. It was just really cool to see.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's see here. Yeah, we were kind of talking about the, kind of impressive run of flips and adding signees in the afternoon. We started off with Steve. Great, we hit on that. And then kind of 15 minutes later, Alabama got two flips within minutes of each other. If you're following Bama 247 boards, you kind of knew this was happening. We got word that, Bama 247 got word that Alabama was still in contact with Arian Hampton, who was the 4-star athlete out of Texas, who was committed to Texas. Alabama was the runner-up with him, or his other finalists, when he ended up committing in July. Heard some rumblings that Alabama never stopped being in contact, and, Hampton continued to kind of go back and forth leading up to his commitment in July. It was, Alabama, Texas went back and forth. We do know Nick Saban, and I believe, I can't remember which assistant coach went, but I think an assistant coach or two went to go see him in Dangerfield, Texas, 2 weeks ago, and that seemed to kind of completely seal the deal. He announced yesterday he's flipping, still trying to figure out exactly what his enrollment plans are. Every kid's kind of different. I know we'll probably hit on that a little bit later in the show, but that was a big deal. I think a little bit unexpected for Alabama fans, who aren't subscribed or aren't too tuned into it. And clearly, Nick Saban had his Wednesday press conference kind of addressing Rose Bowl practice and signing day, and he first of all, Arian Hampton, he goes by Bubba. Nick Saban's already referring to him as Bubba and said, Bubba is a dog. I have never. I think Taltine Rodak may be able to speak to this a little bit better. I know you've been there for close to a year now, but I've never heard Saban say someone's a dog. I don't think he ever even called Devontae Smith a dog. So clearly, Nick Saban is extremely happy about successfully flipping Arian Hampton. His graphic had Jerry Jeudy and all the other wide receivers on there. So I would anticipate he's probably going to play wide receiver, but he could also play cornerback. So it's another one of those things that's like, it's similar to Jalen Mbakwe. I think Jalen Mbakwe is a better athlete right now, but it's another one. It's like, it's a good problem to have. Hey, we're going to put him on defense or are we going to put him on offense? Oh, are we going to have him, return kicks, return punts? I think it's just a great problem to have. And again, I just never heard Nick Saban say, so-and-so is a dog. So clearly he's happy about that one. And
The
then
full
about
quote from Saban on Wednesday. We got to
yeah,
talk to Saban, and we'll touch on some of his takeaways later. But the comment on Bubba Hampton was Bubba's kind of a dog, man. He's one of those guys that's a great competitor and makes a lot of plays. Whatever he plays on offense, wherever he plays on the field, he doesn't come off the field very often. They had a very successful season this year. I know they had a disappointment in the playoffs, but the guy's a great competitor, can do a lot of things, and we're really excited about having him. This is kind of one of those, and you touched on it too. Like, it looks like he's probably going to play receiver. At least that's what all the signs are pointing toward. But this is one of those recruitments where it's like, get the kid in the room and then figure it out later. But like, just focus on getting them here first. And they to go into Texas and flip a Texas kid from Texas to Alabama, impressive, a very impressive flip, I thought.
It's kind of I had it on it early in the show. Jalen Hale, he's done it before. I mean, he's done it multiple. Jalen Milrow, he's their starting quarterback now. So I mean, it's not every year, but it's kind of like, all right, who's Alabama, who's Nick Saban going to go get this year, type of thing. And then kind of sticking with
whatever it's worth, Holman Wiggins and Travaris Robinson were listed as the two primary recruiters. And we gave Holman Wiggins a shout out on the last show, so we should not be surprised that Alabama was able to stay in contact and pull this.
Yeah, I think I was looking. And things could change, by the end of the signing period, things like that, and ratings and rankings and stuff like that. I think Holman is number 2 now. So
who jumped him?
I believe it was Fran Brown, who's.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I'll look that up, but you keep going.
Yeah, it makes a little bit more sense. So everything we said about Coach Holman Wiggins, cross it out. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. He again, I can't say enough good things just from what I've heard from players and other people about Coach Wiggins. He's obviously a ridiculously good recruiter and a great coach, and someone that I don't think Alabama fans are going to want to lose for a very long time, and someone I don't think Nick Saban's going to want to lose for a very long time. But yeah, keep going with the afternoon. I know we keep breaking up here and getting off on tangents, but so we got the Aaron Hampton flip, and then it turned to Kevin Riley, 4-star out of Northport, played at Tuscaloosa County, 10 minutes, over the bridge to campus, kind of his second home. He ended up flipping from Miami to Alabama. Not so much of a shock if you've been reading the latest updates. He was in Tuscaloosa for an official visit last weekend leading up to, Wednesday, kind of locked him in there. He told me, quote, went on a visit over the weekend. A lot of stuff I was able to see made it click in my head that Alabama could develop me to be a good player and a man practicing every day against good players. Lots of people say iron sharpens iron. I feel like playing at Bama, they can develop you in a lot of different ways to be successful. That right there just sounds like an Alabama football player. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, in our signing day preview. A lot of these guys just seem like they are not, give me my NLI money, and if I don't play, I'm going to leave. They all just seem like the Alabama mindset, and that goes back to what we talked about. Nick Saban could take a little bit more time, and he can further evaluate, and he can see who is going to be add to his program in a positive way. But just I know I kind of we went over the flips, but it's just impressive to me because before 3 weeks ago, we didn't really, we heard a little bit of Aaron Hampton, but it was like, no, I don't think so. And then Kevin Riley was, I was told like personally, like, no, it's Miami. We're not having any coaches over, not having Saban over, not having anything like that. And Miami was like,
things change when Nick Saban knocks on the door and wants to sit in your living room, right?
Correct. And I know Miami coaches did not want that to happen. I talked about it on the preview show as well, and made it clear, we do not need him going to Tuscaloosa. Miami ended up being okay. They signed 2 running backs, but it's just great. Like, Saban can wait he legitimately can wait till the last 2 weeks and then go pick up pretty much whoever he wants. I mean, I know we're talking about all the hits today or from yesterday. We had a couple misses. I use the term misses loosely there. Some guys that, I labeled as which targets signed with another school, because I didn't necessarily like a guy like 5-star defensive lineman Edric Houston. I know Alabama was in it for a long, long time and recruited him extremely hard. And when he committed over the summer, Alabama was the runner-up. I know Alabama's continued to stay in contact with him for a while, and I think everybody who followed recruiting yesterday saw how crazy his was leading up to his actual announcement. It seemed like, Alabama did everything they could, and it was the team to beat. I saw somewhere, I don't know how true this is, but apparently his mother had an Alabama shirt on, and then he took he took a phone call. I'm not sure, I'm not going to get into all that. I'm not exactly sure what goes on there. I don't want to speculate or speak on that or anything like that. But he ended up sticking with Ohio State. That was a guy that the Ohio State and Ryan Day absolutely had to have. And for as good as he is in a 5-star, he was probably their second most or second highest recruit they absolutely had to have. I know if we want to talk about Jeremiah Smith and some other flips and other things like that later on today, but yeah, I wouldn't consider it a miss. I really wouldn't, and especially when you factor in, adding in LT Overton and probably adding maybe a couple more in the portal between now and spring practice or fall practice. I wouldn't really consider a miss. And then another guy is Solomon Williams, who ended up going to A&M. It was, kind of seemed like Alabama and A&M were the leaders towards the end. Alabama was named a leader all the way back in June, but he didn't come back and visit until LSU weekend. He took an official visit to A&M the weekend before yesterday, so last weekend. And it seems like Coach Mike Elko, over there at College Station, did an excellent job and locked him down. And, while we're on the kind of A&M Mike Elko thing, Tristan Jernigan, 3-star linebacker who, a week and a half ago, and, when we were last on this pod, I said I was very comfortable or, extremely close to putting a crystal ball in for him for Alabama. But, he took a visit last weekend to A&M, and similarly to Solomon Williams, I think Coach Elko and his staff did an excellent job. I anticipate him sticking with A&M. Of course, he'll sign tomorrow on Friday, I believe 1 p.m. Central Time. Of course, I'll have coverage of that should he end up signing with the Tide. I'm not sure if he will anymore. And then kind of the last guy to maybe a miss, I think it's more of like we're talking about him because, again, like you said, Saban can come into your living room and make it interesting down the stretch. Jaden Baugh out of Decatur, Georgia. He was committed to Arkansas forever. Took an official visit to Florida 2 weeks ago. Took an official visit to Alabama last weekend. Decommitted from Arkansas on Monday night. Talked with people close to his recruitment throughout, from Monday morning to Wednesday. And it was, Florida, Alabama, 50-50, Alabama, Florida, 50-50. So it went back and forth. He ended up, signing with Florida, of course. And, it was early in the afternoon. So that came as a bit of a surprise. He was supposed to sign, later at night, but, that ended up happening. Things happen, ceremonies and whatnot. So I don't know if I would consider it a miss. I know Alabama would have loved to have him. They recruited him hard. And, I think they do want to take 2 running backs in the class. We can talk about the other running back prospects that are going to, announce later on in January. But overall, again, I think it was a very another impressive year for Alabama and Nick Saban. I know I put on the Bama 247 boards, how you feeling? And the first comment was, whether it was trolling or not, I just kind of got a kick out of it. It was like, worst class we've ever signed, and this is the lowest average since 2008. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, you're the number 2 class in the country.
That's, hey, that's success. Success spoils people.
You were
you go
real quick. You were the 28th class in June. I'm just saying, and this happens every year. It's not a shock, but I don't know how Nick Saban does it, and to look and him, whether it was trolling or not, to be like worst class ever. I just kind of got a kick out of it.
That's interesting. I got a couple of thoughts there just on Alabama's recruiting class as a whole. Yes, they finished number 2. And, if you want to go by 247's, the points, that they use to kind of keep track of the team recruiting ratings and whatnot, I think what Alabama finished, or at least not finished, but they're currently at 302.28 points. Georgia's in first with 315, and then Texas third with 291. So when we say comfortably second, that's a little bit more than a 10-point gap between second and third, and 13-point gap or so between Georgia and Alabama. Wanted to circle back to one thought that we had said earlier. A couple of commitments here and there from maybe Alabama potentially being the number 1 rated recruiting class. I think they ran the race with Edric Houston. He ends up staying with Ohio State, but there was a lot of smoke about him potentially flipping. So if he does that, That's obviously another 5-star in Alabama's pocket. But then, on the other side, you look at what Georgia was able to pull off during their recruiting day. Huge flip from KJ Bolden, able to pull him away from Florida State, keep him in state. So Alabama, like you said, I wouldn't necessarily call it a miss on Edric Houston, but then Georgia's able to flip KJ Bolden. Like that's, one potential 5-star going out, one potential 5-star coming in. If the opposite things happen, if Bolden stays with Florida State and Edric Houston ends up flipping to Alabama, we could be talking about, potentially the number 1 rated recruiting class in the country, at least as it stands right now. But ultimately, that's not what happened. Recruiting is a fickle game for those who care about, the team ratings and whatnot. I think the other thing, too, that I wanted to touch on is that I agree with you that I don't know that a lot of these guys were misses, so to speak, or that they lost, like Alabama lost anybody on recruiting day. Because you look at, or at least signing day, because you look at like all the guys that they had recruited, there wasn't really a ton of drama with a lot of those guys. It was just kind of a matter of, all right, like when is Alabama going to send the tweet? Like when are they going to fax their signing in? Like when are they going to fax their NLI in? Like, a lot of these guys that, you touched on, Edric Houston, Tristan Jernigan, Jaden Boss, Solomon Williams, even Favor Edwin, the offensive tackle that I know they were trying to make a late push for. He ends up going to Auburn. These guys weren't committed to Alabama. Wouldn't necessarily say that Alabama lost them. Like you mentioned, Alabama obviously would have loved to have these guys, but like they ran the race with these guys all the way to the end. And, when it comes down to it, it's really kind of all you can ask for, right? Like, does Alabama need, a little bit more tackle depth? I think they would have preferred it. So that's why the Favor Edwin loss stings there. Would they like more defensive depth? Yeah, probably. That's why.
Who wouldn't?
Right. Yeah. Well, and then you look at like, Tristan Jernigan's pretty versatile linebacker. You can do a lot of things. Not unlike Caden Jones, who they did end up signing from North Carolina. Solomon Williams, right? You want more D-line depth. Same thing with Edric Houston, a 5-star D lineman from Buford. That guy's probably a day 1 starter. Maybe not starter at Alabama, but like he'd probably play quite a bit day 1 if he were to come here. They ran the race with those guys. I wouldn't consider them losses. But it's kind of like misses with an asterisk. Like, Alabama wanted those guys. That's why they ran the race with them. And sometimes you come up short, and that's recruiting, right? I think the other thing too about the recruiting team class rankings, like, Alabama finishing with 302 points, lowest since I think, I tracked all the way back to 2016, or maybe it was 2018 when they, didn't even crack, I think 290 team points based on 247's recruiting rankings. So, and I think you touched on this too, like industry experts have suggested that not as deep of a high school recruiting class in 2024. I think there's a lot of talent in 2025, and maybe perhaps as much, if not more, in 2026. So a lot of this is coming down the pike here too. But then on top of that, like the combination of NIL and the transfer portal, like a lot of the talent that is there gets spread out quite a bit. Like Alabama and Georgia have hoarded a lot of the talent in recent years, but like, when's the last time Miami was, top 3 in recruiting? Texas has done really, really well in recent years under Sark. Ohio State's another team that recruits very, very well. But then you look at, the rest of the top 10. Oregon under Dan Lanning has done well. Auburn has really made a strong push. They picked up a couple of 5-stars. Notre Dame has recruited well. Oklahoma, they're trying to make an SEC push. They cooped up 20 4-star athletes. And then you got Florida State rounding out the top 10. So just the talent, there's not a ton of it. And then the talent that's there got dispersed, I think, quite a bit. So maybe that explains why, some people on our board and maybe other Alabama fans at large, like, they look at that 300 and they're like, we've had better, which is true, right? Last year's top rated recruiting class had 328 points. They've been in the 320s, multiple times over the last decade, right? So then to see 300 and then to finish second to Georgia, it's going to strike a nerve, right? So I think that's maybe why people are upset. But I think, take a few days, take a few deep breaths, get through the Christmas holiday. They're going to look at that list of athletes and be like, yeah, we got some studs coming to Tuscaloosa.
Cody, they're going to look at that list of athletes and then they're going to ask me this one question: is Ryan Williams signing? That's what it's going to be.
You went from the recruiting beat to the Ryan Williams beat. Now 23 of these guys are signed, because that's all anybody's going to care about.
Real quick to your point, and I don't have the exact quote pulled up to right here. Maybe you do, but I think Nick Saban was talking about that last night as well. I think he talked about how the talent's getting more spread out, and he was talking about how, NIL is becoming a factor and some kids want to get that money. And he said, that's fine. That's totally okay. I think that's a little bit different approach from what he said, 2 years ago, or I think it was 3 years ago now, where he, basically said A&M bought their whole team. I think he kind of repurposed his approach a little bit. But yeah, I think that kind of speaks to, it's just, you throw in maybe a little bit of a down year as a whole class, NIL, transfer portal, things like that. I think this is just the way it's going to be now. But to sit here and say, Alabama's got 300 points and being like, what's going on? I think it's just kind of crazy to me. Yeah. Did they miss on some guys, early in the summer? Absolutely. But, they have an opportunity to add to this class in the next, I believe, in January. I can hit on that right now, is 2 signings to know coming up. Both these guys have signed or will have signed this week privately. 4-star safety Zay Mincy and 4-star running back Daniel Hill. We've talked about Daniel Hill before. It's kind of a wild card right now, what's going on. South Carolina, you talk to one person, it's like, oh, we haven't talked to South Carolina. And then the next person says, oh, South Carolina's leading. Oh, Tennessee's in it. Oh, Mississippi State's in it. Okay, no. Alabama's always been the leader. He's been there 100 times. So it's kind of a bit of a wild card. He'll officially announce on national television on January 6th. And 4-star safety Zay Mincy out of Daytona Beach, Florida. Just another kind of South Florida defensive back, safety mold that just kind of he just looks the part. Alabama seems to be, very quickly entered the real conversation here. I know it's between Alabama and 3 in-state schools in Florida, Florida State, Miami. I don't know if you can still consider Florida. I'm not exactly sure. It seems like Miami and Alabama are going to kind of be the teams to beat coming down the stretch. That's going to be a pretty hectic recruitment. And he'll also, announce on television on January 6th, the All-American Bowl. I'll be there, so I'll have, content for that as well. I'll continue to follow those 2 recruitments throughout until the signing period, until they officially announce, so I can see what's going on there. But real quick, people are like, why are you, if you're signing now, why aren't you like, these kids want to go on national TV? That's how it used to be. I mean, signing day used to be, you watch the fax machine Twitter, tweet out, we got them, or things like that, or a live stream of the fax machine. I just think it's cool. You used to be able to turn on, your local channel. It was just commitment after or signing after signing after signing after signing. But that's pretty cool. And then, lastly, upcoming signing, of course, is Ryan Williams. Yes, he will be signing February 9th, his birthday, his 17th-year-old birthday. So, before, just the kid's 16 years old right now. He's going to take his visits. Yes, he was in Auburn over the weekend, but, he wants to go see Bronny. He wants to go see a couple other his guys that he grew up with. We'll of course, we'll continue to follow that, after Christmas, maybe not as much coverage in the next couple days into the weekend, probably pick it up heavy again next Monday. But yeah, he'll take his official visits, probably Alabama, or definitely Alabama, definitely Auburn, maybe Texas, maybe Georgia. He's still figuring that out. But yeah, he'll sign on February 9th. That's kind of it as far as, high school prospects Alabama could sign. Again, they could certainly get into the portal. I know, Nick Saban last night was talking a little bit about they would like to add maybe a little bit more offensive linemen. And again, that's what Cody was talking about. That's where it stings a little bit more than others with Favor Edwin, just because, at 6'7", 300 pounds, it's just another body. I know we talked about it before. He's kind of a clay mold and going to take a couple years, but another body is another body. But yeah, it kind of made it seem somewhat clear, at least seem like Alabama's going to be active in the portal. And with the scholarship numbers, I think Mike hit on this yesterday too, probably going to see maybe double-digit guys leave. I don't know how much you want to get in the portal right now, but it seems like it's going to be pretty active this year for them.
Yeah, 100%. And they, they've already been a little bit active bringing other guys on campus. They obviously landed a commitment from LT Overton from Texas A&M. He's kind of a versatile guy in that, he can play D-line, hand in the dirt. I think he seems to be a little bit more of a Justin Aboigbe replacement for next year. I think he'll probably play a little bit more defensive end than maybe stand up outside linebacker. I know Alabama really likes, the guys that they have in the outside linebacker room. I still think they should maybe bring in an experienced edge rusher, but, at the same time, like, we'll obviously, depending on visits and who they reach out to, like, that'll offer clues into how maybe they feel. There's still, recruiting window, you hit on it. February, we'll kind of see what other lingering high school prospects are out there. But then there's also, the portal's open until early January. And then there's another window in April, right? So we'll learn quite a bit after spring ball, just kind of how they feel about certain things. And that's probably a separate conversation for another day. The one thing I did kind of want to touch on here, last, like, and I'm sure you tuned in as well. We got to talk to Saban about the signees. He hit on a few guys individually because we asked, right? He talked about Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. Being the first legacy for him at Alabama, not necessarily the first legacy for Saban, right? He coached both Mark Ingram and his dad, and now, here at Alabama, both Drake.
I didn't know that. That was that kind of threw. I did not know that. That was interesting, and it kind of explains Alabama fans. I think talk with him too. I didn't mean to cut you off here, but it seems like Mark Ingram and Saban have a special relationship, just like very close. So that makes a little bit more sense. But go ahead.
No, yeah, that's so. I mean, he just commented on Drake Kirkpatrick Jr., who from Gadsden City, defensive back that I know they're pretty excited about. We actually have a story coming on him on Bama 247 later today. So if you aren't subscribed, please do that now. But he also, he touched on Julian Sayin, right? Just he called him an outstanding player. He obviously talked about Aaron Hampton, Bubba Hampton. Bubba's kind of a dog, right? So, I'm assuming you tuned in as well. Was there anything outstanding that maybe came from Saban's press conference? I have my thoughts, but I thought I would defer to the recruiting expert first. What'd you kind of take away from what Saban said last night?
Yeah, I mean, for starters, he kind of started off with saying, "I know it's signing day, but we're preparing for Rose Bowl practice." So,
his first words were "challenging day." Nonetheless, I know because it's early signing day, people want to talk about signing day.
Yeah, he didn't seem like he was in the greatest mood. Even after successfully, doing what he did in the afternoon, maybe it was a rough practice. I'm not sure, but I think kind of the biggest takeaway, and I think someone asked this, just about the importance of getting guys on campus early. A guy like Julian saying all three offensive linemen. Jalen Mbakwe will be there soon. Caleb Odom's there. Peyton Woodyard's there. Xavier Brown's there. They were talking about how just important that is. He believes there's going to be close to 19. I got a full list on Bama 247. There's so many moving parts, so it's just easier to kind of just read it rather than getting into each single player. But he was just kind of talking about how important it is, just not only for practice, but here's the stretching routine. Here's where the academic advisor are. And they show them these things when they move in and when they're on official
right.
visits.
Here's how we operate meetings. Here's how we practice,
and things like that.
Ready. Yeah.
And I think he was talking about, I don't want to misquote him, but I think he was talking about how the coaches are kind of have, I think this was probably the case all the time, but kind of open hours for freshmen to come up and talk with them about the playbook and do this and do that. And,
I have the exact quote if you want me to read it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's Saban was asked, here's the exact question. You mentioned that there are some freshmen on campus right now. What's that process been like, just getting them adjusted in the first few days while getting ready for the playoffs? And how is this experience beneficial for them moving forward? Among other things, Saban said, I think the whole experience of being in meetings, learning the stretch program, learning the weight training program, being in meetings and starting to learn the offense or the defense, being around the players on the field, seeing how a college practice really goes and how they can contribute and how they can improve. A lot of them come up and meet with coaches, so they learn a little extra or better understand something in meetings. He wrapped up by saying, I think this total experience is really a positive thing for them, just in terms of their adjustment to how they're going to transition to school in January and that whole process we go through in the spring. So yeah, I mean, it's really just a lot of, exposure and making sure that, when they show up for classes in January, they've got some of the football details figured out. So it's not just overly stressful, right? Because we've all been to college. That first day of class, we have no idea where the rooms are that we're going to, right? So and then on top of that, they're dealing with big time SEC football, so there's just a lot of things that they got to juggle. So if there's anything that they can do to mitigate that, I think Saban would rather take that route than not.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, again, I would have to go back and look and double check, but it seems like this is kind of maybe the most mid-year enrollees. And I know it's becoming more and more common. Maybe 3 to 5 years ago, it really wasn't as common, maybe a little bit longer than that. But you see, excuse me, other schools doing it too. I think it, kind of locks your commit in too as well, like earlier before they sign, like, hey, I'm I'm already on campus, I'm signing, type thing. But overall, I think it's just a good, very good thing, just overall for the team, for the player, for everybody involved.
100%. Yeah. And I think maybe the one other big takeaway that we got from, talking to Saban on Wednesday, they do a really good job of, kind of getting on these guys early, and you and I have talked in previous episodes about, how they're really already attacking 2025 with a lot of gusto. Like they've already picked up some top rated guys, and, they've had other top rated guys on campus, and, that's just, they're juggling quite a bit, but they're juggling quite a bit very, very well, which explains why they're so successful. But then the other thing that really stuck out to me, I thought this was interesting. Somebody asked about the three interior offensive linemen, Casey Poe, Joseph Ionata, and William Sanders. I think the way the question was prefaced was that, Saban doesn't really care about stars or ratings. He cares about kind of what he sees on film and kind of understanding the psyche of the player. But his comments about the offensive linemen, he likes them. He also still wants to probably go get more. Here's the full quote.
I was going to say, I would just give the direct quote here.
Here's the full quote. We think they have a lot of potential. They're guys that obviously that's a developmental position. So those guys are guys that have a lot of ability. We know a lot about them. We have them in camp. We're excited to have them here. We think they can develop into good prospects and good players. I think we're still out there in the market looking for some more of those kind of guys, offensive linemen, both from a number standpoint and a quality experience standpoint. We're excited to have them, but we're still out there trying to add some people to that position. That to me screams, we like these guys. It's going to be a minute before we think they're ready. We want to go to the portal.
Yeah.
Like that is, they, and that explains why, maybe favor Edwin stung a little bit more. The fact that he did not go to Alabama. I think the fact that he went to Auburn might, rub fans the wrong way. But then also, Alabama for a while ran the race with Jordan Seaton, or at least there was at least a day where he was very seriously considering Alabama, right? And that's 5-star offensive tackle, could have been another plug and play guy at right tackle, right? I know Alabama's got Miles McVay, and for the time being, Elijah Pritchett. We'll kind of keep updates on what happened there. If you don't know, go check out Bama 247. He's in a little bit of a pickle, no pun intended. So, like, clearly, and this was something that we had talked about too. Like, when it came to portal targets, right? I had figured right out of the gate that, like, look, Miles McVay may be great. We don't know that yet because he hasn't played a lot, right? And I'm talking specifically about right tackle. Go get somebody with experience, because at worst, you go get a guy with experience, and McVay takes another year to develop. At best, you bring in a guy with experience, and Miles McVay ends up beating him out, right? And then you feel really good about the position. So that, just the fact that that was Saban's answer about the offensive line. Only 3 guys coming in. I know you love your boy Casey Poe. I think there is an absolute opportunity that he could end up being the center, depending on what Seth McLaughlin does, but you can tell that Saban wants more offensive line depth, and specifically, I think, at tackle. And that might, continue to be something that they attack in the portal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit it right on the head there. I really don't have too much to add there. Yeah. It's just another day.
Yeah, that was mostly the signing day conversation that I wanted to have with you, Brett. Just kind of a quick recap. Is there any other thing? Is there anything else from your notebook that you want to dump out here before you go take, a nap or 3?
I think that's pretty much it. I think, overall, we talk about how Alabama's afternoon was impressive, but, talking with some national guys and reading some national write-ups from 247 desk, it seems like it was kind of generally the case. Alabama was kind of one of the winners this cycle. And, they were talking about it too. It's like, it's kind of low hanging fruit picking Alabama or Georgia to, be a winner, but Georgia really was a winner to, have their whole class and then get KJ Bolden, the number 1 safety, flip him from Florida State. And, I think most Alabama fans know, who follow recruiting, and certainly Georgia fans, that kind of Buford to Georgia curse type thing. Kirby hasn't been able to get a guy from Buford. Saban and Coach T-Rob can go in and get whoever they want. Justice Haynes, Isaiah Bond, Jake Pope, Seth McLaughlin, so on and so forth. So it was kind of like, and then it was kind of, is Alabama going to get Edric Houston and KJ Bolden not going to go to Georgia, and they're sitting next to each other at the table? And is this going to maybe challenge them for the number 1 class? So it's kind of a big buildup right there. Monumental flip for Georgia. I give them their flowers there. They did a great job there, clearly.
Defensive backfield of KJ Bolden and Malachi Stark sounds like it's going to be really fun to watch.
And they've also got
to have to play against.
I believe they got Ellis Robinson, who's the number 1 safety. I think KJ Bolden's number 2 safety. So
Not
they're
Not
as
bad.
good as Alabama's secondary hall is. Georgia's is pretty good too, and I think that's kind of on par for what we've seen the last 5 years. I think Georgia and Alabama have pretty much traded 1, 2, 3 spots aside from the A&M 2022 year. But yeah, overall, again, I think it was a good close out for Nick Saban. Still, again, some guys along the way that he could add. Ryan, keep Ryan Williams in the fold. Zay Mincy, Daniel Hill will continue to have complete coverage of that. I will have some class superlatives coming out probably this afternoon, later this week. I've got kind of a roundtable with the whole team of 3 signees we could see playing early and why, and then a full kind of deep long form breakdown of kind of the entire class, position by position, hitting on most recruits with Andrew Ivins, our director of scouting, which I thought was a great conversation. He's always the man. He's always giving out great things. And then, while we're speaking on him, just real quick, kind of shout out to, I don't know if you were able to tune in at all. I kind of had it running in the background the whole time. The 247 show yesterday was 7 hours of commercial free. I'm
glad you said that, because I was going to say that.
Yeah, and every time I hear that, I'm like, ooh, like, is it
Red
Sunday?
zone, right?
Yeah. So it was just I like I worked in Mobile at WKRG local station and worked at a news station, TV news station. So I see kind of the ins and outs of the producing and the directing and the rundowns and things like that. And they had 4 different sets, and it was like seamless. Like, it was so cool to see, and to see Blair Angelo and Brandon Huffman and Andrew Ivins and Cooper Batania and of course Josh Pate and all the other hosts. It was just awesome to see. It was a great coverage, and get a lot of stuff from them as well. When Andrew and Cooper are up there talking about Alabama recruiting, I'm there typing away, getting their thoughts as well. So it was just awesome. It was a great great day. Was the lead up to Wednesday a little bit stressful? Absolutely. But we made it. Maybe we'll see, Tristan Jernigan pop up Friday afternoon. Again, I don't anticipate it, but again, seems like it was a pretty good haul for the December signing day. And I'm just going to call it signing day, because Saban pretty much called it signing day too. He talked about how it got everything gets pushed up 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, all the recruiting experts that I follow, like you included now, right? Like, it's signing day. Like, it's signing days in December, and until they move the calendar, which, again, different conversation for a different podcast, but like, until they change it, and maybe they will, maybe they won't, December is now signing day, and February is just kind of a little bit extra.
Yep.
Yeah, man, that's all we've got today. Brett, I appreciate you always taking the time to talk recruiting with us on Roll Pod. We'll be back sometime next week, probably. I think the next time you'll hear from us, guys, we will be in Pasadena, kicking off coverage for the Rose Bowl. So be sure to be ready for all the good stuff that we've got coming there. I know Talty, Rodak, and I will be down in Southern California. There's literally something to do and write about every single day. We're going to have a ton of content coming to you literally the morning right after Christmas. So be ready for all that. So yeah, in the meantime, though, before the next show, be sure to rate and review the show wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, even our Bama 247 YouTube page. Subscribe to Bama 247 and 247 Sports. We are running a special. I feel like we're always running a special. 60% off an annual VIP membership. I believe it comes out to about $43 for the entire year. You get Brett's expert recruiting analysis. You'll get coverage of the upcoming Rose Bowl, transfer portal, spring practice, all that good stuff. It's the steal of the year. It would also make a great Christmas gift, since Santa is set to make his rounds in just 4 days. So if you forgot, here's something for the Alabama fan in your life. Thank you again, Brett, for joining us. As always, we appreciate you guys listening. We will talk to you all again soon.
See you guys.